We make sure we expose you to new things, what's going on, and challenge you also to get right outside your comfort zone, see what's there, seize those challenges, and make the best opportunities out of those. Today, we have a data scientist, a business coach as well, and he's the CEO and founder of Predictive Analytics Lab, Mr. Timothy Oriedo, to take us through what this big data thing is all about. Guys have spoken about it, we've seen it in the news, every forum is talking about that, but what really is it? How does it affect you? And how did you get in that space as well? We're going to start and have that chat right here. Bona Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
And of course, like the question is, as people are talking about big data, data scientists, data analytics, how did you get yourself in that space? What made you realize there's something here that I need to put my finger on this particular pulse?
Yeah. So mine has been a personal journey of transformation. Of course, starting from the number of years I had working in the media industry, being exposed to different challenges, especially in business models.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the key tasks I had to do was re-engineer business in my later stages of my career. And I noticed that there's a clear gap that most businesses are failing to focus on, which is using data to make precision decisions.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So because you'd been at high levels of management in different organizations, what were you feeling is the gap here? People have the information but don't know how to use it, or they don't have the information in the first place?
Yeah. So actually what I realized was that the information was there, but we are overridden by gut feelings when making decisions, which sort of compromises the logical flow of our decision making. Yeah. So secondly, also there was a lack of tools which enable you to use that information that has been available historically to drill it and make sense of the next move.
Right, right. And let's talk about your corporate journey just briefly, because some people might say, he was just working and then decided to go and become a scientist. How did you get into the corporate space? And what were you doing in that particular regard before starting your own company?
So I think my journey towards what I'm doing now started at the early stages of my learning. So the key thing that I've always had was a curiosity to learn new things, which started very early in my primary school life. Moving on to high school and even in campus is when I started fortifying my curiosity now towards discovering new trends. So besides being trained in mathematics, which is the degree that I did in university, the other skill that has helped me ground myself firmly up to now is a skill of collaboration and being able to create, new dynamics, new spaces that have never existed before. So, for instance, I moved into the media industry back in 2005, and if you recall, those were the early stages of the blossoming of the media industry. We had the democratization of the media frequencies, and then we had an explosion of media houses. So I got an opportunity to work in a media house, and at that time it was a learning curve for almost everyone. So we would meet clients, explain to them what we are doing, what the model is, and I would expect that they would trust us by giving us the advertising budgets for us to turn around some business expectations they had. So that challenge, of course, did move. Of course, with the liberalization of the media space, and then, of course, with the entry of the digital platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, we saw that advantage of the traditional media houses being eroded, and that meant that there's a new challenge in terms of a new skill that needs to be acquired. So over and above the traditional degree that I had, I challenged myself by acquiring a marketing certification, which is called from the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the UK. That's back then in 2007. And it proved a very critical skill to have, even up to today, because it always entailed making discoveries, understanding your consumer, understanding your audience, and actually being able to make decisions that are not for your own advantage, but for the advantage of the consumer of your product. I later on moved to enroll for a course in leadership, because from the journey that I had in career-wise, I got promoted to be a leader. So then I figured now I need to equip myself with the right skills to be a leader and manage my teams better. So I got a role for Masters in Organizational Leadership, the International Leadership University. And that skill proved instrumental in grounding me in the theory and practice of leadership management. And then, of course, I enrolled for a PhD right after that, still on course with it. But then in my next journey of my career, where it rose now to a more executive leadership role, I enrolled for coaching. Yeah, so that's back in 2014.
Right.
Yeah, so I enrolled with the International Coaching Federation, which is a reputable coaching body worldwide, and I got certified as a coach in 2015. Yeah, and using those skills, and again because of the ambiguity, volatility, and you know, the kind of environment that business is operating in, one thing that I had to ground myself in was to be very strong in empowering others to discover themselves.
Right.
So the coaching skills comes in critically. It's out of the coaching skill that I did upskill myself into the data science field.
Right.
Because I had a realization of the decline in opportunities in the media sector, and I found I have to reconfigure myself and see what else can I use to leverage all the years that I've had, the experience that I've gained. How do I leverage on that and build a new frontier that can be able to actually create opportunity for others, being able to make businesses aware of the emerging opportunities, and even also individually enabling individual people to be able to create the best of their career moves.
I'm just wondering, with all of this, as a mathematician, because that was the first degree,
yes.
did you ever practice that? Where does a mathematician go other than, you know, if you're not teaching?
Yes.
Did you actually use the mathematics degree as a mathematician? Did it ever come into play?
Actually, it's an interesting question you asked, because I think one of the lecturers, and I can remember one of the courses we did in our fourth year was called Measure Theory, and the lecturer actually told us the only two people who employed who work and use this knowledge that I'm teaching you. So the rest of you just go sit for the exam, and unless those guys move on, you will not have a place to apply. But I think for me, one of the messages I wanted to deliver to the audience today is it's what you make out of the skill that you have. Yeah, because some of these skills might sit in latency, waiting for the right time.
Right.
Yeah. So what has happened is the discovery that I made when I enrolled for my data science course is that there's nothing really new. There are three things which have changed, which is the availability of technology, which is now we are using old mathematical formulas, because if you look at the mathematical formulas that we use in data science, they're not new.
Right.
They're the same things that we used to study back then. Some of them are like 17th century discovered, 18th century, but they're now kicked back to life because of essentially improvement in storage technologies. And then one of the other key drivers is the shifting and volatility of our markets. So, for example, our consumers unexpectedly changing the expectation. So most businesses are striving to be ahead, understanding what's going to happen next.
Right.
So that need is driving that.
Right.
Yeah.
And even as we talk about this, let's jump into the new baby and what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
For everyone who's seen that word for the 1 millionth time and just gloss over it and move on, what is big data?
All right.
And you said you're a data scientist because that's your playfield. When you're told there's a lot of big data, we're analyzing big data, what is it?
All right. So I would like to use a scenario of moving from the known to the unknown. Now, data traditionally has been understood to be anything that's stored and anything that creates value when you look at it. So for instance, a balance sheet is a form of data.
Right.
But that's one type of data that we concern ourselves with. So we call it structured data.
Right.
Yeah, so any data that you'll see written in numbers, and one of the issues that we spend time educating corporates is understanding the principles. So number one, data that is written as numbers and figures, that's just one type of data, and it's only 20% of the data we concern ourselves with. Yeah, so most of the time we are confused to be, you know, mathematicians or, you know, without numbers you cannot have work. But 80% of the big data is now unstructured. So what is unstructured data? So for instance, we're talking about video footage, we're talking about images, we're talking about unstructured information such as text written on social media. Now what's changing is the fact that now that you're able to analyze, traditionally we have people called data analysts, you know, who've been working with the structured information. But now the new thing is that we can analyze videos. Yeah, we can analyze images, we can analyze photos, we can analyze text. So that's what big data comes from that. Yeah,
all of this unstructured information
data
that you have, unstructured data that you have is what you're getting into.
Exactly.
So as Predictive Analytics Lab, what does a company do on a day-to-day basis?
All right. Yeah, so what we do three things on a day-to-day basis. So first is we develop softwares that help businesses and individuals make sense of their data. So if you remember, I talked about two types of data, structured and unstructured. So our softwares actually analyze both sets of data.
Right.
Yeah, one of our newest innovation is a data set, a software that we've created that analyzes CCTV footage and can give you a head count or a object count of how many cars have driven into your building or how many individuals have walked into your building.
Right.
And what's the business application of that? You're able to create, maybe you own a mall, you're able to tell what's the footfall traffic of people walking into your building.
Right.
Yeah, so in the back end of that, we train. So because what we realized is when you take these softwares to the market, people don't understand the underlying principles.
Right.
So as it is natural, when you have a new technology coming, you tend to doubt its ability and you may try to question the methodology used to creating it. So we set up a training lab, which primarily focuses on upskilling. Okay, so I'll explain shortly the difference between upskilling and reskilling.
Right.
Yeah, but then again, we pride ourselves to be a lab that can able to create a new skill to professions, so at least to re-engineer their career path, and then secondly to create new discoveries for businesses, so that those businesses can be able to make better sense of the information they hold there.
As they put out there.
Yeah.
And at least from a business point of view, it makes sense what businesses might look for to get that competitive edge, to understand their customer better.
Yeah.
But let's drill it down to a personal level, because we've heard this story about what you're putting out there in terms of individuals, whether it's on social media or other fronts. There's a huge digital footprint we're all leaving. Why should we care? Because most people will be like, Tim, there's nothing I have to hide. I mean, I just want to post the pictures of my family and my children and the clan and everything I do every day. Why should they care?
Yeah, so, okay, without getting so much technical in my explanation, I'd like just to give an example. And coming from what I explained earlier about what unstructured data is, I'd like to pick an example of social media. And what we in our lab as Predictive Analytics, first of all, we create awareness. And one of the things I'd like to bring to the attention is the data protection bill that the government has spent time to draft. And then secondly, on the global, there's the GDPR law that came into effect in Europe that's actually affecting us here locally. But one of the things that we've noticed is there's a clear lack of appreciation in terms of what information we put out there, and all that information comes back to us. And we're able to reveal patterns that are not upfrontly revealed when you just look at any social media account. So just to explain how that works is first, there's what we call data. So data can be disclosed. So disclosed data is information that you put out there voluntarily. Okay. Then there's what we call derived data. So derived data is information that data scientists, for example, will go and look at the information you put there voluntarily and build a model around the behavior that you're putting there. So for instance, we could model a credit risk appetite. We could model your credit risk appetite by just looking at how frequent you make your posts, where do you make your post from, which are the places that you do visit socially. We can also do what we call graph network analysis, and we can be able to tell and build a recommendation engine for your friends. So some of these engines are the ones which have been exploited by the Cambridge Analytica of these worlds to be able to change your behavior, because what they'll do is instead of targeting you with an advert, they will look at your network of friends and target your friend. And that's how they're able to reach beyond the digital divide. So we keep saying that, oh, me, I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not affected. But what these platforms do is they look at graph network analysis. So they target your friend who's on Facebook and they'll show him an advert. That friend will come and tell you what's happening. So that's why we are not all, not everyone is is clean out of this whole phenomenon. It's good to be aware what information you share there. But more critically, it's the government. It's the government to come out to protect. Because you see that most of these solutions are created from globally. Then we adopt those technologies. So we need, first of all, from an individual perspective, you need to create some sense of awareness in terms of the information that you're creating out there. And then also have a spirit of discernment. So whatever you see online, just don't jump into it. For example, we had this the latest craze on the aging app, the face app, where everyone jumped, and a couple of guys were doing those challenges, not knowing that the company that is running that gaming is collecting information from them, and they'll be using this information in later years, because there's a clause in the use of that app that says that the information that you use when you're creating that prediction of your aging is the property of that app. So we spend a lot of time educating users of these digital platforms that every time you load an app onto your phone, check the permissions that you're granting that application. Yeah.
But at times they say there's so much text.
Yes.
They're just like, okay, I agree.
Agree.
You know, just I want to use this app. Let me just agree.
Yeah. So that's also another challenge that has been created. But I think that's where the government comes in, because it needs to create a very strong protocol of the operating environment of these digital apps, because most of them are gleaning information from our mobile phones, and the value that they're getting out of that from processing of that information, you just never know how much powerful that information can be.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's good you mentioned about the aspect of sometimes it doesn't even allow you the option. If you decline to give it permission, then you will not use the app. Yeah,
true.
So it's the government now to come out strongly and say, now, this is the protocol of these apps operating, and we need you to have this level of threshold in terms of the information that you can access.
Right.
The platform owners, for example, Android, owns, which is owned by Alphabet, they own the platform for the Play Store. So they have created a protocol that before you publish your app, you have to give clear use where you're going to use that information for.
Right.
So as a result, most of the apps were delisted there. Right. They had to reapply afresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And even as we are pressed for time, I'd just like you to paint a picture of Mr. Tim, your day, because you're doing your PhD, you're teaching as well, you have a company that you're running. Yeah. How does a typical day work in your life?
And have a family as
and
well.
And that has to be, you won't delegate that to someone else. How does that work?
Yeah, so my typical day is, we talk about work-life integration. So it's typically looking at how do you create that tipping points, when do you invest time where. Yeah, so typically my day starts off by having a moderate workout session, just to keep myself well-grounded and health-wise. And then I move on to spending time with my team in the office, where we create the agenda for the day, we discuss what projects we are doing, and then of course going out to meet clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I'm a coach, so I spend a particular moderate amount of time having one-on-one sessions with my clients.
Right.
I also spend time with businesses. So my coaching models are always two: I'm meeting with businesses or I'm meeting with individuals.
Right.
And then in the evenings, when I'm not teaching, I'm home with the family.
Right.
But I do teach once per week. Yeah, I teach a master's class at the United States International Universities.
Right.
So I teach once per week, but the rest of the time I'm home with the family.
Right, right. And the big question, of course, for a person who understands the intricacies and what's happening online and how valuable data is, are you on social media?
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I'm on social media, and there are different types of social media platforms. Yeah, so I'm more strong on LinkedIn platform, which is a professional business platform. Yeah, so I do a lot of engagements with my prospective and current clients there. Yeah, I do a lot of mentorship. So I write articles. I'm actually authoring a book, which is going to be published by Longhorn Publishers.
Right.
Yeah, so I do share snippets of the chapters of the book on that LinkedIn platform, and creating meaningful engagement. Because again, as I told you, we're in the winter period of this technology. So a fair share of my time has to go through education.
Right.
Yeah, so I share a lot of the information for free for people to just be aware. And I use the social media platforms for sharing that.
Okay, fantastic. And even as we wrap up, for somebody who might want more information and they're like, oh, I already did the face aging app, I'm in very deep on this one. Or for a business person who wants more information on how they can use big data in their business, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so you can find us at www.predictiveanalytics.co.ke. Yeah, so we have also other face-to-face engagements. So we run a lab every Saturday. We run a training lab. We have 3 programs we run for training. So we have a program we run for professionals, which has been very exciting. We've done it for 6 months now, and we've seen already people getting jobs out of going through our program. Yeah, we've also run private labs within companies, so you could give us a call and we could come and sit with you, assess your business problems, and create for you a data coaching strategy, which is a tool that we've designed in our lab to help you create tools for yourself. And then also we run academic programs. We've been fortunate enough to have our program adopted by key certification bodies. Right. Yeah, so we pride ourselves as being pioneers in this area, where we are developing curriculums, and those curriculums can be adopted by different academic institutions embedded in their curriculums.
Okay.
And then we have a big team of guys who can come and deliver the same programs.
Okay, fantastic stuff. So you've heard there's no excuse for you to say you are left behind, you didn't know where to get the information. It's out there. Log on to the website. They can either come to you or you can go to them and, of course, get this started. If you're in campus, it's not too early. They're making sure that as you get out of campus, you have the appropriate skills to get into the job market and get even more opportunities wherever you want to go. Of course, getting up close and personal with Mr. Tim Oriedo. He's the founder of Predictive Analytics Lab, just making sure that now the data makes sense for everyone out there. Mr. Tim, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
More power to you.
All right.
Asante sana.
Karibu.
We're going to take a short break. We're back onto the side. We're talking about alcohol.